Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. And what we have for you today is our special weekly video where we go over the best new meta decks. Yesterday was an OTA, and the OTA took out what I believe are two of the top meta decks. We'll talk about what they are and why they're gone. We will also, in the process, go over what I believe are the top 10, in fact, 11, because there's one I'm not totally sold on, but I could easily see being in there. We're going to go over the top 10/11 best meta decks in Marvel Snap, including getting you covered for your weekend missions. First, very quickly, for anyone who missed it, the OTA, and I have a whole video on this, so we're going to do this very briefly. Surtur no longer has his 2 times per turn limit, but instead he has the much harsher, only gets +2 power instead of +3. That means if on turn 4 and 5 you play 10 power cards, Surtur is going to be a 3/9, not working with Scar. Scar also gets harder to play, becoming a 7/12 instead of a 6/10. That means, again, if you play a 4 on turn 4 and 4 on turn 5, you've now got a 3/12 Scar. That again makes the card significantly worse. It is my belief that at this time that shuts this deck down and it no longer exists. Arrow becomes a 5/9 from a 5/10. That's going to stop the Scream Surtur deck from existing as well, because Arrow was the key along with Surtur to tie those two decks together. That's no longer the case, though Arrow still has another home, the standard Scream deck. From there, we have Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night goes back to his original power, finally, becoming a 3/3. A good card now, potentially, but one that I still struggle to see finding enough of a home in the meta. I hope I'm wrong. I love Werewolf. Annihilus becomes a 5/7, going up from a 5/6, again back to its original stats, but that's the only change to it. It doesn't get its old ability back of hitting zero-cost cards. This card, again, might be decent right now. It's hard to tell. Annihilus and Werewolf are going to need some more testing to see if they can be successful in a meta that doesn't run as much Scar. White Queen is a fairly major change, but one I don't think most players will really care about. White Queen goes from a 4/6 to a 3/4. That's a major change for an early series card, but we will have to see if it becomes meta. I'm not hopeful. Lizard goes from a 2/5 to a 2/6, and I think 2/6 is enough stats to really matter. It would not shock me to see Lizard start to find meta homes. Obviously, in Sauron decks, that will be coming back to the 4 once more, but I think in many other homes as well, 2/6 is just a lot of stats. High Evolutionary goes from a 4/6 to a 4/7, making him feel slightly better in situations you're forced to play him, but you'd still rather play basically anything else in your deck than that card. And finally, the other big one, I think along with Lizard, the big positive changes are Lizard and Joaquin Torres Falcon. The first spotlight card of this month has gone from a 3/4 to a 2/2. It still has the exact same ability, but at 2/2, I think that this is going to be a card that matters for the metagame in a real way. I don't think they made this change without thinking it through. I don't think they made this change um, without the understanding that this is now going to be a very strong card. I could, in fact, now see this card somewhere down the line getting nerfed because I think this is going to be strong and it is going to feature in some of the meta decks we're going to look at here today. Before we get to those meta decks, though, I want to ask you to please, if you're willing, hit that sub button. We bring you more Marvel Snap videos than anyone. This week, we will have done 9 videos already. We're doing a 10th video as our second video tomorrow. We have more Marvel Snap content than anyone. We brought you all the best Sanctum decks. We cover everything in Marvel Snap. We give you at least 3 brand new decks with full guides every single day, card replacements, everything you need. The bottom right of your screen has a little YouTube looking button. If you click that, you're subbed, and it would mean a lot to help us out to our goal of hitting 25,000 subs in 2025. Please hit that sub, a like, and a comment also help tell the algorithm to show us to more people. That like and comment will also do more for you, but you're going to have to stay tuned for that. We're going to kick this off by talking about what I think is right now the very best deck in Marvel Snap, Classic Scream. Several months ago, I believe it was around September, we had our big anniversary episode of the Snap Judgments podcast. And on that episode, Glenn Jones came on, and we talked about the top 5 cards in each cost slot. Scream was a relatively new card at that time, but Glenn revealed that Scream had a similar win rate on play, not just in deck, on play to Mr. Negative. Since then, I've been telling everyone that Scream is incredibly strong. If you check the stats on any of the public stat trackers, whether you use Untapped, Marvel Snap Zone, or SnapFan, Scream decks were always near the top. Scream was nerfed from a 2/3 to a 2/2 and was made so that Luke Cage will prevent her from gaining power, not just prevent opponents from losing power. At first, people stopped playing Scream. Very quickly after, Scream resumed her power and ability near the top of the meta. This is once more one of the highest win rate decks, both for achieving infinite for infinite play and even for high infinite play. I think Scream is right now the best deck in Marvel Snap. It's the best deck that runs multiple of the best cards. I think that there's a real argument that both Iron Patriot and Sam Wilson are among the best cards. There's a real argument that Cannonball is among the best cards. There's a real argument that Rocket and Groot is among the best cards, that Hydra Bob is among the best cards. And in running all these cards, all these things getting cheaper, I think Scream is currently insanely strong and the very best deck. This is one that's constantly slept on by everyone. If you don't play this enough, it's easy to go, oh, it's just a little bit of extra power. Scream is absolutely incredible. This version of the list is basically the one that has been played since Scream came out. You can find decks like this on MarvelSnapZone.com if you are so inclined. This one, I literally just pulled the highest win rate from MarvelSnapZone.com and checked out the win rate. In order to play a Scream deck, the only high series card you really need is Scream. That's part of her power. Anyone who's in Series 3 and has access to enough Series 3 cards can play this card. Cannonball can be either Heimdall or Legion. Heimdall offers you a lot of surprise wins. I actually lost a bunch of cubes earlier to a Scream deck because I played around Magneto instead of Heimdall. You can run Heimdall, you can run Legion, you can run Magneto. Hydra Bob can be Nebula or Nightcrawler. Nebula seems expensive, but will be Series 3 later. Nebula encourages your opponent to play cards in certain locations. That's very good with Rocket and Groot, who is in this list, but it's also very good because it lets you sort of plan where and how you're going to use your moves in order to power up Scream. If they don't do that, they end up skipping and you end up with a bunch of power. Hydra Bob is very good here, though, because a snap from Hydra Bob can give you a 1/6 Miles Morales, which is obviously incredible power. Nightcrawler is your backup plan should you not have these. It moves, so it still at least does part of it. It can pump Kraven, and it can work reasonably well with Miles Morales. Iron Patriot and Sam Wilson are the best generic 2-drops in Marvel Snap. Sam Wilson has extra value here because of Kraven, and because of Miles Morales. Iron Patriot just gives you a cheap, incredibly powerful card when it works, and it's fairly easy to get it to work. If you don't have them, you can. The only 2-drop I think that's a really good replacement is Lizard. Lizard now as a 2/6 is very strong, and if you're moving the opponent's cards around, you're fairly likely to be able to keep Lizard as a 2/6. Other changes are the same as the changes to Rocket and Groot. Rocket and Groot can be Red Guardian, Rogue, Luke, or Enchantress. Red Guardian is obviously one of the very best cards in Marvel Snap. We're going to see Red Guardian in a lot of lists today. Rogue offers you some protection from the ongoing stuff that's out there. Luke from the Affliction, and Enchantress can shut down a lot of the things that Rogue and Luke are both trying to do, except it can do it all, except it's just, a little more expensive than you would like it to be. One last time, this is actually, excuse me, before we get to the turn by turn, this is Ika's version. Ika's one of the more prolific and just brilliant, honestly, deck builders in Marvel Snap. Ika's version is slightly tweaked for the meta, Legion being an answer card. Because there's little Legion, magic is sort of on the upswing, so Legion offers you an answer for that. And because both Diamondback and Luffy came out this week, Luke Cage is a very good meta answer right now, and thus it is replacing Iron Patriot in the list. Feel free to mix and match as you so choose. I just like to show you an alternate version so that you can make some choices. Another really good card in this list that's not in this version is Juggernaut, by the way. All right, so turn by turn. So turn 1, you want to play Hydra Bob. It's the only 1-drop in the deck. Turn 2, Scream, and Scream on 2 is a snap condition, although it is sometimes okay to wait till turn 3 in order to make sure that the locations aren't going to screw you. There are some locations you really don't like here. Not as many decks, but there are a few. It's worth noting that people don't necessarily run when you snap on Scream because she doesn't feel as scary as she is. So if you can play Scream and still snap on turn 3 fairly often and get away with it. If you don't play Scream, I generally prefer Sam to Iron Patriot because I can then go Sam into Iron Patriot, and then I can move the shield and get that extra power, which is reasonably good, and that's better than Kraven. Turn 3, you have Polaris if you played Scream or Kraven. You can play Rocket generally if you have priority. Don't play Rocket on 3 if you can avoid it if you don't have priority. And another 2-drop is fine. You have 4 2s in the deck that are all perfectly fine plays. If you got a move off, a 3 and a 1 is a very good play on turn 4. Polaris and Miles, for example, or a Rocket and Miles if you've managed to claim priority with your Polaris, which happens reasonably often. Also, if you're trying to claim priority, sometimes you don't have to move the shield to Sam immediately. You can move it to another lane to grab priority if you're looking to play that Rocket, and then you can move it to Sam the next turn. It ends up being perfectly fine. You can also drop a 2/2. You have plenty of good twos, and Spidey is a really, really nice play here on turn 4. That's going to activate your Miles and activate for next turn and activate your Scream all at once while disrupting the opponent. This is also your last good turn to play Iron Patriot, because if you play Iron Patriot on 5, you'll not be able to take advantage of the discount. If you play it on 4, you have a reasonable shot at doing so. If you don't have any of these little combinations, just dropping a Stegron is fine. Stegron's really, really frustrating. Remember to try and play your Craven mid or right so that you can potentially Stegron onto it. Stegron and Miles is your ideal turn 5 plays. You can also go with a 3/2. You still have that Polaris or Rocket or whatever. You can drop that with Craven, or you can just feel free to drop Arrow. Arrow lost 1 power. She's still absolutely excellent in this lane. And then finally, turn 6 is either Arrow or Cannonball. Cannonball if you manage to clog a lane, and clog is sort of your backup mini game plan here. Polaris and Stegron especially are very good like fake clog cards. They can force your opponent to have way more cards in location than you want, and if you can win that lane that you've clogged, then Cannonball is fundamentally always a win. That's this list. This is again my pick for the single best list in Marvel Snap right now. There are things that are more explosive, but if you just want to win a lot of games consistently, this is what I would do. Before we go any further, I'd like you to know this video, not any other video, this video specifically, we are giving away an Agamotto. Agamotto is the season pass card that comes out next Tuesday. Someone who comments on this video will win Agamotto, period. All you have to do is sub, like, and then later this video, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. Whoever's comment is picked, and it'll be a random generator, whoever's comment is picked will win Agamotto, straight up. We are also giving away our last Sam Wilson this week. Commenting on any video posted this week will enter you to win our last Sam Wilson that we are giving away. We are also giving away 5 more copies of Agamotto next week. So if you would like to try and win the season pass card before you buy it, this is the place for you. Make sure you sub, like, and comment. All right. I think Bounce is back. It says Joaquin Torres is a 3/4. It takes a while for Marvel Snap Zone to update properly. Joaquin Torres is a 2/2. I put him in over Bishop. I really, really like Bishop and bounce decks. But Bishop has to be played on turn 3, and now on turn 3, I just have too many things to do. I want to be able to start to set up my first bounce. I need to get out Black Swan, Agent Venom, and Joaquin Torres. I think that Joaquin Torres is absolutely amazing. And I think the real reason that Joaquin Torres is so freaking good here is that now I can bounce it. It gives me an extra thing to do on the last turn of the game that if I have Black Swan or Beast on turn 5, or trigger a Black Swan for turn 5 or Beast on turn 5, I can then play a lane that I know my opponent needs to compete in. I can play Joaquin Torres and a Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon is going to get +8 power immediately if I've triggered it once already. If I've triggered that Rocket Raccoon once already, that is +14 power. That's a 115. So hopefully my math is right there. But no, I'm wrong. Excuse me. That's +12 power, so it's a 113. Excuse me. Plus the 2 from Torres, that's where the 15 came from. I can do math once in a while. We end up with enough power to suddenly win a lane. We still have the Hit Monkey or Sage to win another lane. We still have, if we've managed to play even one Hood on Joaquin Torres, 212 in power. If we can play Hood twice on Joaquin Torres before the end of the game, that is 4 energy, 24 power, 4 demons. And that we can play those for free with Black Swan. That's insane. That's insane. I think that this list is real. There are enough locations that give this trouble. But if you're not seeing an awful lot of opposing Cosmo, I think that this list is extremely good, although Bounce is not easy to play. The card that's most questionable here, and this might not be the final build of this list, right? We don't know what the final build is. Torres was just updated last night. The card that is up for debate here is really Nico. I personally love Nico. I think Nico's Destroy 2 on Hood to really get everything going is incredible. I think to turn Hood into a demon is incredible. To turn a used Falcon into a demon is incredible. To give something +2 power, or on Torres +4 power, or turn her into a 1/8 on Torres are all extraordinarily valuable things. Plus the move right and location change occasionally steal you extra cubes. I don't want to cut Nico from here. I could see it being a possibility, but I'm not sure it's the right thing. The other potential card to cut here is Agent Venom. I like Agent Venom a lot here. Turning Hood into a 1/3 is incredible. Starting Sable as a 3, Sage as a 3 is incredible. The only card you're getting anything negative for anymore, now that Torres has been updated, is Beast, and I think that it is probably worth it. Is that going to be a requirement? Uh, I'm not sure. I tend to think no. I've had a lot of success with Bounce recently without Torres, without Agent Venom, with Bishop and Shadow King. That's been my most successful version, but I think I want to start with Agent Venom because I want that 5 power. I want one thing with big power to really mess with. You can find me at twitch.tv/PulseGlazer playing this list. I want to do a big tutorial video of this one relatively soon. This deck needs Sage, Hitmonkey, and Black Swan. Those are your required cards. If you have those 3, you can play Bounce. If you don't have Toxin, you can play Mysterio, although now you probably want to find room for Bast because Bast with Mysterio is so good. Agent Venom can be Shadow King. I told you that replacement. Sable and Nico are good but not required. You can run Iceman, America Chavez, and if you would rather not run America Chavez, Hawkeye is excellent in these builds as well. Finally, Joaquin Torres can just be Bishop. Someone's going to suggest that you start trying to run Werewolf by Night in this list. I'm going to tell you I've played as much Bounce as almost anyone. Werewolf by Night and Hitmonkey, generally speaking, do not work well in the same deck long term. They can have short term success, but they tend to get in each other's way. There might be a Werewolf by Night Bounce deck right now, but I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sure about this one. If you want to try another version of a bounce deck with Joaquin Torres, this one from Zombies Go Nom Nom seems like it's really, really cool. This one's running Bast and along with Agent Venom. It's not bothering with Hitmonkey. It's instead trying to win with ongoing cards, and I think that offers it some extra power. It's trying to win with Iron Man or Darkhawk and using Torres. Darkhawk and Joaquin Torres have really nice synergy, although it's worth noting that if you don't see Korg on Torres or bounce Korg, you are not going to have a very big Darkhawk, which could make your lane winning very difficult. I think this is reasonably cool and very, very worth messing with because you can also, as always, win just through I have a ton of hoods. A bunch of 1/6s are fairly likely to win games of Marvel Snap. You are going to because everyone does. I've seen Lambie do it. You might not know who Lambie is. He stopped playing Snap. Lambie was the best player in Marvel Snap for a long time who played a lot of bounce. Where you end up messing up your timing of Hood and Bast and you end up basting your demons. It happens. Try not to beat yourself up about it, but keep it in mind to try not to do it. It's just another cool version before we get to the turn by turn. So, turn 1, you want Nico if draw 2 or turn into a demon. Turn 2, Hood or Sable. Remember that Sable on top of Joaquin is going to not only be 4 power for you, which is amazing for a 1-drop, as we know from playing Hydra Bob, but also is going to fundamentally neuter one of their cards, giving it negative 4 power. So unless they have Luke, that's an absolutely crazy power. Agent Venom, sorry, I wouldn't play my other ones. I would play Hood or Sable. And you can play Hood or Sable because you have 3 bounce cards, and you're assuming you're going to be able to play anything you play on 1 twice. Turn 2, you want Agent Venom as a general rule. You need to get that out as soon as possible. Yes, I would play that over Torres. And then Black Swan. Black Swan is fundamentally your easiest snap condition. If you can get a Black Swan to stick and you get the right cards, you are very hard to beat. When you don't get Black Swan or you don't get a Beast on turn 5, the deck doesn't work nearly as well. So you really want one of those 2 things to happen. So Swan is your snap condition, but if you can wait a little bit to make sure it sticks, that you don't Red Guardian, and you can snap around Swan. Turn 3 is a 2 and a 1. Sometimes you're going to play Sage to bounce. That's totally fine. By the way, Swan and Torres work reasonably well together in that if Torres gets hit with a Cosmo or a whatever nonsense or a Red Guardian, your game plan still works. If Swan gets hit, you're in a lot of trouble. So you can use it to protect Swan as necessary. Although be careful. There is a one little trick because I think we're reasonably often going to want to bounce Torres on 5. What we can trigger Swan and then bounce it, and it's bounce and it will still take effect. Although at that point you're only unless you're only playing 1/1-drop there. If that 1-drop is Hood or Rocket, that's often going to be enough. Turn 4 is your last. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Turn 3, you want a 2 and a 1. Sometimes you've played a couple cards and you know you're going to bounce. You can just drop a Sage on a pile of cards and then you can bounce that later. That's really good. If you get a Nico copy once in a while, if your opponent is playing a lot of cards, you can pass 2 and then Sage on 3. A doubled Sage, a copied Sage is one of the strongest plays in the game. Turn 4, you want your last Black Swan chance and another 2. You can use a bounce play here as long as you're getting Swan out, or you can drop last Swan and some 1-drops and save that bounce for turn 5. Turn 5 is your last bounce chance. Beast if no Swan, and Beast can be a snap condition if you're pretty sure it's going to go through. Make sure you think about what your opponent has. Against Arishem, that's often a fairly obvious Goliath spot, so don't necessarily snap it. So Beast if no Swan, and if you don't have Beast or Swan, you're going to want to Sage on this turn because you're not going to be able to play Hit Monkey and Sage on the last turn, so you're going to Sage this turn to try and lock up a lane, and then you're going to try and use 3/1s, ideally Demons, Rockets, and Monkey on turn 6. And then turn 6, if you can, play a bunch of ones, Monkey and Sage, largely through Black Swan, but sometimes through Beast. 3/1s, Monkey and Sage is please, please, please have snapped once you realized you could do that. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to drop Monkey and Sage a little late, and you're going to have a little trouble snapping. This list is awesome. They finally fixed Torres so it works in bounce. I understand why it was a 3/4 when Red Wing had a different design, but I do think that this is going to be a meta card, and this is, spoiler alert, not going to be the only time we see Joaquin Torres on this tier list. This is our last chance review of Sam Wilson Captain America. We're not going to review what this card does in any great detail. He's a 2/3 that makes a shield, and then he can move the shield, and the shield gives him +2 power. That's the quick summary, right? We've all seen this card for a month at this point. It's in a crazy amount of decks. This is one of the better cards in Marvel Snap. It's one of the best 2-drops in Marvel Snap. It's generic enough to go in a ton of decks, but specific enough to enable multiple synergies, whether it be Craven or Cull Obsidian. This is a card you really want to own. Because it is so generally good, we are going to continue to see decks that run it. As an added bonus, this is probably right now, given last night's nerfs, the very best deck in the Sanctum Showdown game. The very best card, not deck. It's not a deck, it's one card. The very best card in the Sanctum Showdown game mode. As such, I think you really would like to get your hands on Sam Wilson Captain America if humanly possible. If you've been waiting to buy it and you have the money at all, you should probably buy it. This is an amazingly valuable card in Marvel Snap and will make your games much, much easier. Also, before we go on to the next spot, some of you are wondering where the new Sanctum decks are. This is being recorded. Last night I recorded a podcast, and then right after the podcast, I went to record this video. The podcast was recorded like 5 minutes after the new bans were announced. I will have a second video for you tomorrow that will break down the extra Sanctum decks. Have no fear, I will get you those Sanctum decks as soon as possible. If you'd like to see them sooner, hop on a stream or message me on the Discord linked in the description of this video, and we'll try and get you decks as soon as humanly possible. Next up, we have Captain Latveria. This one has almost fallen out of favor, but it's still one of the top win rate decks at, again, every level of the game. It's just not played as much anymore. I think with Scar sort of going away, this deck should be featured relatively soon as a heavy meta favorite once more. This just keeps winning. Even when Scar was everywhere, this just keeps winning. A lot of people are running Afflict. Well, you have Luke Cage. A lot of decks are running a lot of people are running Scream. You again have Luke Cage, and you don't really care if they're moving your stuff. This list puts up a massive amount of power. It is fundamentally the easiest thing in the world to play. Once you get Doom, you're playing one card a turn, right? It's the easiest thing in the world to play, and it just wins. Every level of the game. If you want to hit Infinite, this will get you there. If you want to climb an Infinite, this will get you there. Even at top 10% Infinite, this is one of the better win rate decks in Marvel Snap. Captain Latveria is legit. Hey, I made this originally. Basically, this deck is solved, right? It's the base cards are the base cards. It always runs like 80% of the cards, and then specifically the Luke Cage spot, and the Rocket and Groot spot. Is it Luke and Rocket and Groot? There's one other spot. Luke Cage, Rocket and Groot, and I guess sort of Iron Lad sometimes get switched around for various tech cards. If there's a tech card you need, that's the spot you end up using it. All right. Sam Wilson and Doom 2099 are your required cards here. You can't run the ongoing version of this list without Doom 2099. There is a Scream version of this list, but that Scream version is nowhere near as good at this exact moment. We'll see if it comes back after the Surtur nerfs. Iron Lad and Rocket and Groot are not required cards. They can be Super Skrull, Rogue, Shang-Chi, Gladiator, Mobius, Red Guardian. Pick your poison. Any of these are totally frickin' fine. This is one of the highest win rate high infinite decks. It was the highest win rate high infinite deck previously. It's still up there. Turn 1, you want to drop the Ant. Turn 2, Psylocke, and please snap on Psylocke if you have Doom or Lad. If you are snapping right after a Psylocke, opponents who are smart should run, especially if you didn't play Ant-Man. Because what they should be going is you have one of 3 cards. The reason you snap on a Psylocke is you have Galacta, you have Mr. Negative, or you have Doom 2099. All three of those are beatable, but unless they have a hard counter for all three, they're no longer favored and generally speaking should run. If you want to keep them in, you snap before Psylocke. If you want to chase them away, you snap right after. You can also snap on Psylocke for Iron Lad, although that's less of a sure thing. If you don't have that, you drop Sam and you're fine. Turn 3, Doom, for the love of God, please snap before Doom. Over Iron Lad, over Captain America, Steve, over Mobius, excuse me. That should be Luke. That should be changed to Luke. And your Luke play here is a potential snap if your opponent is playing something that it makes an obvious free win for. I should have had Rocket Groot in here, not Super Skrull. See, I have Super Skrull in because I'm worried about an ongoing meta. I'll tell you why I'm worried about an ongoing meta in, I believe, about 2 decks. So just hold tight for that. Doom 2099 remains your main condition here. Turn 5 is Blue Marvel or 4, and then turn 6 is Doom Classic or Spectrum. And please, please, please count over which you should play. Some games you're going to have enough ongoings that Spectrum ends up being better and more power you need it. Some games that Doctor Doom is going to be better and more power, and you're going to need that instead. Do the math. Don't be lazy. You should be able to pull this off. If you're struggling with this list, I strongly urge you to try and use Sam Wilson's shield and Rocket and Groot to direct where you want your Doombots to go early, changing their destination, changing where you play them later, and by moving them, the shield and Rocket and Groot can lead Doombots to only going in certain spots, which will really help your win rate with this list. Before we go any further, I'd like to invite you to please join one of my Twitch streams at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. I'm not 100% sure I'm streaming tonight, but I'll definitely be streaming tomorrow. Tonight, I'd really like to stream, but one of my friends is suddenly getting married, and my wife and I are going to be witnesses. So I'm not sure what the plan is after dinner. They might go off on their own, or we might be with them for a while. So if we are with them, then there will not be a stream tonight. Sorry. This was, trust me, a surprise to us. Given the short notice of it, not that they're getting married. So I will try to go live, but please make sure you check out a stream at twitch.tv/pulseglazer. Thanks much. All right. Hey, this kind of list is why I'm starting to consider Super Skrull again. So Derek is one of the best players in the game, right? In August and September, he was the #1 player in the Infinite Leaderboard. He was #2, I believe, 2 other seasons. He's been busy. He's a student. He's been in school. And so his test ended like a couple days ago, and he was right around the top 10. And then he started playing this list and another list we're going to talk about, I believe, on Sunday, maybe Monday. And now he's rank 3. He's absolutely crushing. Mobius is starting to disappear again from the meta. We're going to see another deck that's going to take advantage of that because it's very hard to run both Mobius and Luke Cage in decks. And Luke is right now semi-required because the 2 Affliction cards came out this week. That lets Derek take advantage of Pixie. And this list is sort of a combination between the small good cards list with big Iron Man and Gore, and thus it's able to farm cubes. There is a weakness. There's parts of the meta, there's parts of the world, I watch enough streams to know this for sure, that are still seeing a lot of Enchantress. If you're in that part of the meta, in that part of the world, you might want to skip this list. However, if Enchantress has started to disappear, if you're seeing a lot of Luke Cage, if you're seeing a decent amount of Arishem, then this list should absolutely, absolutely farm. Derek again created this. This deck needs 4 high series cards. You need Nico Minoru. I wish you didn't need Nico, but Nico's really, really important when you're running Hood with Bast and Agent Venom, because Nico's Destroyed Demon +2 are very, very good for that Hood. Plus you need that third 1-drop. Plus Nico is absolutely amazing with the draw 2 whatever stuff, +2 with Warlock and Pixie. So yeah, you're just kind of stuck with that Nico there. Like, it's so much better with Nico. Pixie is very important. Pixie is how you sort of cheat wins here. Pixie is very often, if you have Iron Man and Gore in your deck, you snap on Pixie. Agent Venom is also needed because you see the powers on these, right? There's no power on any of these damn cards except Agent Venom. You're going to need Agent Venom in the deck. Kate and Cassandra Nova can be Mobius, Sam Wilson, Red Guardian, Rogue, Joaquin Phoenix, Cosmo, Juggernaut. Take your pick your poison. I would not be shocked if Joaquin Phoenix ended up finding his way into this list. Cassandra Nova is here largely because it's a 0, but the other real reason Cassandra Nova is here is because Arishem is just enough of a present to still need to be farmed, and Cassandra Nova alone is enough to turn that negative matchup into a positive one. We featured in yesterday's video a full guide to this deck from Burrs. Burrs was around rank 8 or 9 last season and rank like 5 the season before, and has this wonderful, wonderful list that he's climbed into the top 15 with after not playing for a couple weeks. It's yet another Iron Man Gore ongoing, this one trying to take advantage of anti-venom instead of Pixie synergies. Again, check yesterday's video if you would like some more on that. Yesterday morning's video to be specific, because yesterday was yet another 2 video day for us. If you'd like to see a full review of this, but this sort of ongoing shell is becoming really powerful. Burrs also has the advantage of being able to run Cosmo, so it's not so weak to Enchantress, but it runs Magic, so it's got an extra vulnerability. The trick to building this type of ongoing deck is figuring out what the right vulnerabilities are for your pocket meta. If your meta has a lot of Legion, then this deck is worth. If your meta has a lot of Enchantress, then this deck is better. See the idea? Good. Again, rank 3. Exclusive, you're only finding this deck in this video. First place, you're getting it, friends. Turn 1, Nico if draw 2 or Demon, because you are perfectly happy to draw 2 off Pixie, Warlock, Kate, even Agent Venom. You're happy to turn any of this stuff into a Demon. If you get Nico on the right thing, you should probably snap. Turn 2, you really want Pixie. Pixie can be a snap condition. Look at what's in your deck. If Iron Man and Gore are in your deck with a bunch of 1s, I think Pixie is basically always a snap. You can also snap after Pixie as a threat if you draw something good, but you might want to try and steal more cubes at that point, saving that snap for a little later. Next up, Agent Venom is better than Kate, is more or less equal to Warlock. You're going to have to look at the opponent's board and what they're playing as best you can. Obviously, sometimes you're not going to know that on turn 2 and decide between Kate and Warlock. Warlock will get power if he's played early and nothing good happens with him. Kate might give you ones that you need to play earlier. Do you have a good 3 play? Then Warlock is suddenly better. If you know you're going to go 2 and Bast on turn 3, maybe you want Warlock. If you know you're going to play Cassandra Nova, maybe you want Warlock. If you know you're going to play Luke, you probably want Kate. You're just playing combinations of these cards on turn 4. There's nothing fancy here. Turn 5, your general goal is to play Iron Man if humanly possible. If you don't have Iron Man, you're obviously, again, playing combinations of lower things, but Iron Man is your play here. Be careful and wary with Iron Man. He is a big Red Guardian target, but hopefully you've been able to draw out that Red Guardian sooner. Turn 6, Mystique and Demons or Gore. You want to play that Mystique on that Iron Man. If you can get the Gore out earlier with Pixie, so on and so forth. If you know you can copy a Mystique or an Iron Man or Gore with Mystique, and you have at least a Demon to play and something else, then you're probably safe to snap. Again, a lot of this comes down to what you see with Pixie, but this is very strong and very cool and really, really distinct, and I hope you give it some play. Next up, we are at our weekend review of Diamondback. Diamondback is a 3/3. Ongoing enemy cards here afflict with negative power have an additional -2 power. If you like Afflict, I think this is worth getting. I don't know what else to say. I think this is actually a very, very good card. I didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was this week, because this is the week that Luke Cage is extraordinarily prominent because of Diamondback's reveal, because of Diamondback's coming out. The issue here is that a bunch of new cards came out, Sanctum came out, so there's not as much Diamondback, so there's not as much Luke as people would expect. Plus, outside of the top players, people play Luke too early. A Luke on turn 6 can blow you out, but a Luke on turn 3 is just a fairly easy retreat. And if they don't have Luke, they don't draw Luke, or they can't afford to play Luke, this very often plays as a 3/11. 3/11 is crazy, crazy good stats. I don't know what else to say outside of that. 3/11 is fantastic, and you should strongly, strongly consider playing this card if you like this type of Afflict deck. These decks, however, are reasonably expensive, and if you have that many of these high series cards, you could probably already afford this, right? It's not the most important card of the deck, but I think it does take it to another level. We're going to start with for this card, our weekend mission deck is going to be Fathor Newman's Diamondback, and I just want to call out that this is a freaking expensive deck, right? We've showed decks that only need a couple high series cards: Ajax, Anti-Venom, Malekith, Red Guardian, U.S. Agent. Is U.S. Agent Series 5 or 4? I don't actually remember that. Iron Patriot are all high series cards. Man-Thing, Laufey, those are Series 4 cards, although Laufey you can get for free right now. Zabu is Series 4, but will be Series 3, so you can get that for free. You need Zabu, though. So this is a very, very expensive list, but it's also very, very strong. I don't actually know who created this list. We're crediting Fathor Newman because he had a video on it. That's how I found the list. It's also one of the highest win rate, high infinite decks. You can find Fathor Newman at Twitch or YouTube at Fathor Newman. Wonderful, wonderful person, good friend of ours. We owe him thanks for coming up with the turn-by-turn guide idea for the channel. I didn't realize he did that. He told me he did, and then I went and found the video, and he 100% did. So this deck needs Zabu, Ajax, and Man-Thing. Those are the only actual required cards. If you don't have Red Guardian, you can run Rogue here. I usually think you need US Agent for these lists, but I'm coming off that a little bit as the meta is in a weird place, and Scar should be on a downturn. Iron Patriot and US Agent can be Sam Wilson, Scorpion, or Lizard. I think Lizard is decent here because you run Luke, and if you don't know, Luke prevents Lizard's downside. Laufey and Diamondback can be Cassandra Nova or Juggernaut. Juggernaut is very good in this type of list. Cassandra Nova is very good, except Cassandra Nova has some anti-synergy with Malekith. Anti-Venom can be Sarah here. You're totally fine running Sarah. Oh, sorry. I've also run Gladiator in that Diamondback Laufey spot, and Gladiator works perfectly fine. People are asleep on that play. Anti-Venom can be Sarah. That's the only real replacement, but there are suddenly a whole bunch of decks that are running Ajax and Sarah floating around. I think Anti-Venom is better, but Sarah is a reasonable replacement. Malekith can be Invisible Woman. I know that seems weird, but there's a really high win rate version of this list that's running Invisible Woman in the Malekith spot, and I kind of like it because it lets you do things like drop that early hazmat and stuff. If you have Anti-Venom, Malekith can also be Frigga because then you can go Anti-Venom and then you can Frigga the Anti-Venom card, and that's a very powerful play. There is another list that has nearly as high a win rate in a far larger sample size. We've covered this list like 4 times. This is the Cougarrr Afflict list that runs high Evo, literally. High Evo buff to 4/7. That runs high Evo literally because that gives it the free Abomination. And Abomination, if they're not running a counter, is freaking so often free in this list. You'll note that this one doesn't bother with Luke. I replaced and the best win rate version of the list replaced Cassandra Nova, who was in the list with Diamondback. Cassandra Nova gives you obviously that plus matchup against Arishem, but Diamondback is better against anything else. What Diamondback does in this list, and I feel like I should say this here too, because I've said this in a couple of other mediums, what Diamondback does is she sort of combines the best of Sage and the best of Cassandra Nova. Cassandra Nova played earlier is a 3/6, and that's just good stats. But she ends up playing more like a 3/8 because she takes power off a couple of things your opponent plays. That's really, really strong, right? 3/8 is great. But you have to play her on curve to really get max value. Sage, you never want to play on curve. You play her on curve, you end up with like a 3/4, but at the end of the game, she's like a 3/10. And you get that extra power from playing her at the end of the game. Diamondback sort of splits the difference. If you play her early, you're still getting that benefit of her power, and you can play her late as a surprise and get the benefit that way. So both of those work absolutely, absolutely well together in this version of the list, or basically in any version of the list, which is part of why I'm so high in Diamondback. This version has a 59% win rate in 130 games at high infinite. Zabu is fundamentally your snap condition. There are other snap conditions, but Zabu is your easy snap condition. If you get Zabu, don't snap on one. Wait to see locations. Wait to see if you can tell if they're going to run a Luke. But Zabu with a bunch of 4s in deck is very often a snap on this version because Laufey, Malekith, Anti-Venom, Man-Thing, 4/4s. If you can make one cost 3, your game gets so much easier. Turn 2, I'd still play Zabu over Iron Patriot over US Agent. You don't really want to play US Agent, but you're fine doing so. Iron Patriot can always be a snap condition, depending on what it hits and if you're able to make it work. Now, it's worth knowing that Iron Patriot does not, unless you played Zabu, have anything amazing on turn 3 to win, but sometimes your opponent just sort of misses. And if your opponent just sort of misses, sometimes an Iron Patriot and a Luke, an Iron Patriot Diamondback, an Iron Patriot and Red Guardian is able to steal a lane. Turn 3, you should play a 4 if you can. You should consider snapping based on what that 4 is. Luke is otherwise fine, and Luke is more or less equal to Diamondback. Both of those have vulnerabilities being played early, but so be it. I'd generally rather play Diamondback early than Luke, but there are games where it can be hard to get Luke out, and then, Luke is fairly important. Turn 4, Malekith or Anti-Venom, and what either of those hit could be a snap condition. It's hard to tell. Man-Thing can also be a snap condition, but, it depends on the matchup. You'll know if Man-Thing's a snap condition. There is still that small good cards list floating around that Man-Thing just eats a lane for, right? If Man-Thing's going to play as a 4/11, 4/13, you're in pretty good shape. Turn 5 is generally speaking Ajax or 3/2. You would generally rather get out Ajax. And turn 6 is a 4 and Hazmat or US Agent. Whatever your last 4 is with Hazmat and US Agent, and you should be able to win. This list is awesome. These are just very powerful cards. Laufey is a 4/11-ish, 4/13-ish. Man-Thing is a 4/11-ish, 4/13-ish. Malekith plays very often as a 4/9. And if it's pulling other cards, it's pulling US Agent, it's pulling Red Guardian, it's a 4/11. It's pulling Diamondback, it could be like a 4/15. Anti-Venom gives you a free card. That free card's power you can count as part of Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom plays for at least, generally speaking, a 410 or so of power. The real power of this list, sorry, Diamondback plays as a 311. US Agent plays as a 2 9. The real power of this list is how much extra power you are getting out of cards at various cost curves. Keep that in mind. Play it not so that you can afflict the most possible, so that you're getting the most points out of your cards. Because there is an absolute crazy amount of points all over the place. There's a bundle if you don't have US Agent and want to play this right now. It is the Red, White, and Fight bundle. It's here for a few days. It's 199% value for $50, 4,000 tokens and 2,000 credits. This is not amazing value. 200% is good as far as the way we recommend our bundles. Basically, 173% is average, 200% is good, and above 200%, like 210 to 220, is usually great. That puts this firmly in the good category. There is, however, a big caveat to that. If you don't own US Agent, this won't give you the base card of US Agent, but you will be able to play this variant in decks and have US Agent. I think if you don't own US Agent, this is great value. If you do own US Agent, this is an easy skip. Next up, we have a Cook from MSL Chamo that he has climbed back into the top 5 with after falling down to like 15. This is basically a version of a deck that was called The Cook for a while. Derek and what's his name? KX4N made this and played this all over the place. Oh no, Barzy. This was a Barzy original. But yeah, the deck is back because Sam Wilson works really, really great with Mockingbird. For a while, people were trying very hard to bring back Moon Girl versions of this. Duplicis, I believe, had some success with that. But the original version is working very well as Mobius is again on the downswing, as Luke Cage is on the upswing, and all of a sudden, your ability to play Mockingbird and Sasquatch at the end of the game is insane, especially because you can pump up cards like Mysterio and those cards with Elsa Bloodstone. You can have extra energy with Hope. There's a lot to speak to this deck. You can find Chamo streaming at twitch.tv/Chamo92. He is a Spanish speaker, but he is also awesome, and you should totally go check him out and say hi, tell him I sent you. This deck needs Mockingbird, Sasquatch, Hope, and Zabu. Those 4 cards are without any kind of question absolute requirements here. Galacta or Gwenpool can be Shang or Captain Marvel, but you need Galacta or Gwenpool. Like, I wouldn't play it without both. Gwenpool is better for Mysterio, Galacta is better for everything else. Sam or Kate can be Iron Patriot or Mirage. You do want something that generates cards because Mockingbird is in the list. Elsa, well, you should own Elsa because they gave Elsa to everyone around Christmas. If you started after Christmas, thanks for watching, but it's going to be a while before you can get this deck. If you don't have Elsa, you should run a mover, Rocking Groot, Jeff Nocturne, that kind of card. But like, you should probably have Elsa because they gave us that variant over Christmas break. All right, so again, this is either rank 4 or rank 5, depending on where the hell it's been since I started recording videos. Turn 1, you want Zabu. Zabu, if Gwen and Galacta in deck, again, is a potential snap condition. Be paying attention. I should have said this sooner in the video, but I want to make it clear because this is someone's first video, right? Snapping does not mean I'm going to win the game. That is not why you snap. You are not snapping because you are sure you're going to win. Your snap says, I am favored, I have the things I need in order to pull off this game. Because I am now favored, my snap tells you, you should either double down, because that's what snapping is, you should double down that I think I can beat your best, or I should just run. You should lose a reasonable amount of games you snap, but if you're snapping effectively, you should win significantly more, because you're favored. You snap when your deck does what it does. Turn 2, Mysterio of Sasquatch is perfectly fine. You can also drop Sam or Kate. If you can play Galacta or Gwenpool on 3, please snap. Once again, same concept as before. Snap before them. You want to keep opponents at that point. Over Hope, over Elsa. Hope is great here. Turn 4, Gwen if Mysterio in hand. Galacta is better than 2/2s on Hope. If your ideal situation is you played Hope on 3, Gwenpool on 4, and then on turn your Gwenpool was able to hit Mysterio, and because now you have 6 energy, you can now play Galacta and Mysterio on turn 5. That would be like ideal Candyland. Doesn't always happen, doesn't often happen, but that's like the best. You can also drop 2/2s. You can drop Sam and Kate or whatever on Hope on turn 4 just fine. Turn 5, you play a 3+2 or a 4+2 if you can with Mysterio on Hope. Also reasonable if you played Gwenpool on 4, you can now play Galacta and Kitty Pryde just fine. That, if fair warning though, does not lead you to a great Sasquatch last turn, but that's a really, really good play if you end up going Mysterio Sasquatch 2-3. Turn 6 is Sasquatch and Mockingbird plus whatever the hell else you have energy for. If you played Mysterio on turn 5, your Sasquatch will be at least 3. Your Mockingbird will be at least 3, except it'll be 2 because you have your Sam Wilson shield. So you'll have a 2/9 Mockingbird. Ideally, you played at least one other card, say it's Elsa for argument's sake, with Mysterio, and now you have a 2/10 Sasquatch. That leaves you 2 extra energy. Enjoy your Kate Bishop, your Kitty Pryde, your whatever else. Sometimes you're only going to play one of those. You can get that Enchantress out too if that Enchantress is going to steal the game, for example. Just enjoy. This deck puts out a crazy amount of power as a surprise, and thus it is able to get some really, really serious cube wins. I try not to advertise this all the time, but once a week we do our best to make sure that we bring it up. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments. If you decide to sign up for our $2 tier, not only do you get extra support for the channel where we release again more videos than anyone, and it's not particularly close at this point, but also for like less than 3 cents a video, you're supporting the channel. But also you get exclusive access to all of our tournaments. We host a bunch of tournaments with cash prizes, and just being a $2 Patreon lets you in there. Our $5 tier gets you early access to all the videos and extra access to me, and our $10 tier comes with an exclusive video and exclusive shoutouts. So if you're interested in any of that, please check out the Patreon at patreon.com/snapjudgments. It lets us do a lot of our community outreach and a lot of the things we do for the community. So if you're interested, please do check it out. Next up, we have KMBest Mid-Range Control. I don't know if this is the exact version anymore, but this deck has been successful enough that I'm basically convinced that there is a version of this. I think there is a version of this type of mid-range control that is really great. This deck is fairly similar to the previous deck, it's just smaller. I think the last deck is likely better into this meta, but I'm not sure. This deck does a really good job at sneaking under things and stealing points. You can find KMBest at twitch.tv/KMBestMS. Our friend Mayor Pluto created this list as well a couple days before KM, but this list is incredibly, incredibly strong and really worth it to mess around. This you need Zabu, Galacta, and Gwenpool here. You have to have both Galacta and Gwenpool because you just don't have enough power. You need to see one of them. Red Guardian can be Rogue, Rocket Groot and Copycat being Gladiator and Negasonic, Kate, Iron Patriot and Sam, Psylocke, Lizard, Adam Warlock, Cable, Mirage. All good? All good. This remains one of the top tier mid-range options. This is like sort of our good stuff representation. I haven't seen Wiccan for anything. This is sort of replacing Wiccan in the current meta. Turn 1, you want Zabu. Zabu remains the same snap condition in the exact same ways we've talked about over and over. If you've got both Galactic and Gwenpool in the deck, Zabu is snapping. Turn 2, Iron Patriot. This deck really does want to hit that Iron Patriot and take advantage of the Iron Patriot. So if you can get that Iron Patriot and the right card, that is a major snap condition here. This one does rely on Iron Patriot, but luckily Iron Patriot's insane, so you're fine. Sam or Kate are fine on turn 2. It's worth remembering that Mayor Pluto runs Cable in that Sam spot, so if you run Cable there, you're totally, totally fine. Turn 3, Galacta or Gwenpool over Copycat or Rocket and Groot. Again, Galacta and Gwenpool early tends to be a snap. Turn 4, Galacta is just better than Gwenpool here. And that's better than Captain Marvel, although again, if you don't have Galacta or Gwenpool by turn 4, you're very often just going to run, or at least run from any snaps. Turn 5, one of the other 4s, or Enchantress or Captain Marvel. Getting Captain Marvel out at this point with a Galacta hit is very, very good, especially if it costs 3 and you can play with it too. Turn 6, Juggernaut, Enchantress, or Captain Marvel with whatever. You just sort of play whatever makes the most sense. Juggernaut is often very good at stealing one lane for cheap, and then Captain Marvel does a great job at stealing the other. Again, very ideally and very important that one of these cards costs 3, because if you can go Juggernaut and Enchantress or Juggernaut and Captain Marvel, you're in very, very good shape with this list. If you're stuck playing Enchantress and then like a last turn Kate, that's nowhere near as powerful, obviously. This list is very good. It's really, really consistent. A lot of people hit Infinite with it. A lot of people played it well. I think this is on the downturn right now, but I do think it is strong enough to still make this list as one of the 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. Our season pass question, if you'd like to enter to win that Agamotto, is what's the best deck I missed? And fair warning, at the very end, instead of the questions of the day, I'm doing an honorable mentions. I've got 8 decks that I considered for the list that didn't quite make it. We're going to talk about at the end of this video. Next up, we've got Parry, Husky, Derek update. So, this list, ready? I helped build it. Derek made the original version right when Victoria Hand came out, and then updated it when Moonstone came out. Then Husky updated it a few weeks ago, and it became a meta list. Well, when Joaquin Torres was buffed, Parry Manilow, our friend Parry, edited the list to this version, and that's where we are right now as far as this goes. You're probably looking at this going, I don't know how I feel about that Zabu. So you can still play Zabu on run. You can drop Torres on it, and then if you drop Misery on that, if you draw Anti-Venom or Moonstone, it's gonna be one. Yeah, I thought you might like that. You can also, if you end up playing Zabu on turn 3, and like sometimes you're gonna play Zabu on turn 3, right? You just now you if you draw Moonstone or Anti-Venom, it's 2, and now you're so far ahead from that kind of play immediately that I think it's worth messing with. It could be lots of different one drops though. You should check out Parry Manilow, our friend Parry at twitch.tv/Parry Manilow. He's watching this on the elliptical. Hi, Parry. So please do go check out one of my absolute favorite people in all of Marvel Snap right now. This deck needs Victoria Hand, Misery, Frigga, and Kate Bishop. Those 4 are non-negotiables. Hopefully, if you got Victoria Hand, you got Kate because they came together. Misery is just really good, and Frigga just keeps finding more and more homes. Moonstone and Anti-Venom can be Shang, Rogue, extra ones like Iceman. You can run sort of whatever there. Moonstone's nice because you do want for this list. Oop, let's go the other way. For this list, you do want to try and double Victoria Hand. You can do that with either Frigga or Moonstone. That's what Moonstone's so nice. Anti-Venom's really nice because you are running Frigga, and going Anti-Venom into a 0 into frigging that 0 is often a win condition as well. Shang is great though. The meta really does like Shang right now. The meta really does like Rogue right now, and extra ones like Iceman make a lot of sense if you're running Joaquin Torres. Speed can be Punisher if you don't have speed. I know that seems weird, but if you have Moonstone, it works out just fine. If you don't have Moonstone, it doesn't need to be an ongoing. Just pick whatever good card you want. Zabu can be Nico here. It can be sort of whatever one drop you like. Iceman again makes a lot of sense. And then finally, Joaquin Torres and Iron Patriot can be Mirage. Although I think you would probably really like to have Iron Patriot here. Mirage is the only really, really good replacement. This is not rank 12 right now. It was rank 12 last we talked about it. I don't know what Parry's rank is. Parry's climbing in the top 1,000. Husky used this list to climb to rank 11 and then used a different list we're going to talk about next to climb to rank 3. So turn 1, you want Zabu over Hood. Turn 2, Victoria Hand on the 1. If you got a Victoria Hand that you can play relatively safely, then and you can frigate, you're snapping. But you do need to make sure that you either have Frigga or you have the Moonstone to double it. Again, you know how much Enchantress is in your meta. You know how safe that snap is. Iron Patriot is always a potential snap, but be careful. Joaquin Torres can be played here, and so can Kate. There's also a play where if you get Hood out and you have Iron Patriot in hand, what you can do is you can turn 3. It has to be turn 3. Play that Iron Patriot and Demon on that Hood, and then you can Misery them both. Misery is going to give you an extra Demon and an extra Iron Patriot card. Plus, you now have 14 power in that lane, which means you're fairly likely to get that cheap Iron Patriot card. That play is a snap condition, just for the record. Okay. You can also play some ones on Torres here if you're getting Zabu and Hood on Torres here, and you've got Misery. Yeah, that's a snap too. Frigga, Victoria Hand is also a snap condition. Your turn 3 is just insanely, insanely strong for this list. You can as well play Speed. Turn 4, Misery is better than Anti-Venom as a general rule. Misery is just so freaking good in this list. If you can hit the right things with Misery, it's a snap. The right things being Hood, generally speaking, or getting a second Iron Patriot card and guaranteeing your Iron Patriot win. From there, we've got Anti-Venom and can be a snap based on what it hits. It depends. If Anti-Venom hits one of your 4s, you're in really great shape. If Anti-Venom hits a Frigga or Victoria when you have a copy, that's really great, for example. Turn 5, 1 plus Misery on Hood. So you can play, you can just play Hood and Misery here. You can play Zabu and Misery here. You can play one of your Kate Arrows and Misery here. You're fine. You can snap if you have multiple Victoria Hands here, or if you have a million Hoods. It's worth noting that with one Victoria Hand, Hoods become 8, right? Let's say you have 4 Hoods, which is just a reasonable number of Hoods to have here. That is 4 energy for 32 power. I just want you to think about that for a second. 4 energy for 32 power. You want to make sure you're generating cards on turn 5 so you have things to play on turn 6 if you didn't get all those demons. Turn 6, generate cards, second hand, or last 4 plus demons. And then you just win. I think this list is back to the meta. I think the Joaquin Torres change really helps it. I think the Scar hit really helps it. I think this list is going to be absolutely incredible, although it is not necessarily easy to play. And it's also worth remembering, if this deck is feasting on you, you can always run Gorgon. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but I write an article on Marvel Snap Zone almost every day. If you'd like to check it out, I'd appreciate it. I write a lot there. Next up, we've got Husky's Good Bird. Husky Puppies is one of the best players in Marvel Snap, one of the biggest streamers on Marvel Snap. He has this deck he calls Good Bird. That is just absolutely stellar. It is incredibly powerful. He took this to rank 3. I know a lot of people that are absolutely playing a ton of this to a great amount of success. It's got a million plays. It's not easy. I personally am not very good with this list. I'm very good with most things. But Husky crushes with it, and so are a lot of other people, so we're going to take a look at it. You can find Husky at twitch.tv/HuskyPuppies35. This deck needs Blink, Redwing, and War Machine. Rania can be Iron Fist. Ghost Spider is dropping to Series 3, so, have Ghost Spider. Luna Snow can be Hope Summers. I know that's another Series 5, but that's the only replacement, sorry. Alioth can be Red Hulk or Gore. Again, I know those are expensive, sorry. Kate Bishop can be Cable. Oh, if you got Redwing and want a different list, I've had much more success with this version. It's sort of a Dracula dump Redwing. It's a different list, right? This one doesn't run War Machine. But hey, if you want to play Redwing, I covered this in great detail in yesterday's first video, so check it out. Husky, I believe, is around rank 5 right now. So turn 1, you want Aranya, Ebony Maw if you already have War Machine in hand. Remember, we're talking about this list. Cool, I'm not talking about that previous list. Turn 2, you want Kate over 1-drop, although sometimes you'll play Aranya first depending on what you have. Turn 3, Luna over Electro, generally speaking. Sometimes it'll be Electro, like if you know you're immediately going to drop a Blink, you can just drop Electro because it's better to Blink Electro. And that's better than Redwing, and you only Redwing if your hand is sort of bricked, but you can Aranya Redwing here if your hand is sort of bricked just fine. Turn 4, you want Blink over War Machine. The reason you'd like to play Blink before War Machine, generally speaking, is because Enchantress on War Machine is a good way for your snap to backfire. Blink on War Machine is relatively safe, although they could Shang that. Shang is a little less common right now, especially after the recent nerfs to all the Surtur stuff. Blink over War Machine over Redwing and move. Turn 5, War Machine is still a snap condition. Now they can Enchantress you. Try not to play it on an Echo, please. You can also drop a 6-drop if you had Luna or Electro, totally fine. You can play a 1-cost plus Blink on this turn if you got Luna or Electro. Remember, Luna or Electro are key. Or you can play a Redwing and move it. A reasonable thing to do, by the way, play Redwing on 4. You have extra energy, right? Play Redwing on 4, and then you can move it with Ghost Spider on 5, and then you can Blink that Ghost Spider too. Just great power here. Yeah. Then turn 6, you pick a 6-drop, and if you can play Ebony Maw or an extra 1-drop on that turn, you do so. Or an arrow from Kate, you do so. And you just drop a ton of power, and the opponent has to try and figure out how to beat you. Very, very strong list. Very strong. The Cosmic Cuties bundle is in the shop. It's $30 for 197.2% value. It's 2,500 gold and 2,000 credits. Unless you desperately need the gold for Sanctum, I strongly urge you to skip this. It is a couple Series 3 cards. You get these cards for free. Unless you think these are the cutest thing in the world and want the variants, it's not good enough value to go out of your way for. I built a Hela list. This is one of the few lists I'm not entirely sold on here, but Parry and Manilow tested this, and I tested this, and these lists are incredibly strong. Scar right now is a 7-12. That's why he's in the list. 7 is not only odd cost, it's a card that costs more than Hela, which means that it is a great target for both Lady Sif and Swordmaster. Being a great target for Lady Sif and Swordmaster, it finds its way into the list. It's also drawable with Thunderbolt Ross. If you don't have Thunderbolt Ross, please feel free to run Adam Warlock. However, this is a very good list. I played it earlier. So I'm going to, if you don't have Thunderbolt Ross, you can run Adam Warlock. Excuse me. If you don't have Scar, you're probably going to end up running something like Arrow or an extra whatever big card that you can find, but you really do want Scar for this. You do need Blink for this version, unfortunately, I think. There's also another version with changes. This is another one that's just my version. Parry had my the aforementioned Parry Manilow. I was in his chat on Twitch when the OTA happened, and he and I put this together based on my previous version of Hela. If you would like to play another Hela, this is the one that has the best stats according to Marvel Snap Zone pre-OTA, so feel free to play this. It's still very good, but I do think that the best home for Scar is going to be Hela, and this is the list you want to be into. So turn 1, you want Blade if Infinite, basically whenever. If you can discard Infinite, that's almost a snap condition in and of itself, unless your opponent has Fenris Wolf, obviously. Turn 2, Thunderbolt Ross, again, Blade whenever. Turn 3, Sif if Death or Infinite, or Scar now. You can also draw, that's better than Swordmaster of Scar. You almost always play Sif over Swordmaster, because Swordmaster discarding Sif sucks, and Sif basically never discards Swordmaster. Whew. Okay, next up, we want 3 or Hellcow on turn 4. Turn 5, Jubilee is better than Blink as a general rule, although you're going to have to look at your hand and deck. This is one that really benefits from a deck tracker. And turn 6, Hela is better than Blink. This deck, the hell? This is my old version. Let's go. Oh no, this is the right version. Excuse me. Scar not being in the right spot broke my brain for a second. 7-12 now. Okay. So this deck is really good. What should happen, and I'm not 1000% sure this is how it works, but what should happen is that when Death and Scar are discarded, they should count as their base cost. They should be 8 and 7 respectively, which means you should just get a ton of extra power, and this list should absolutely crush putting out a ton of power. Parry had great success with this. I played this in a Gold Conquest that I lost because Hela decided in one game with a snap to dump all of my cards, 40 power worth of them, into one lane while leaving the others at less than 20 each, which womp womp, Hela's going to do that sometimes. This list is really, really good. I urge you to give it some run. To see gameplay from these decks, please check out the stream team. Today is Friday, so the great Pirate King himself, Tucker, will be streaming some Marvel Snap playing these decks. Next up, Bullseye. This list has not been touched. I didn't even touch these slides since last time we did this. This list is still great. They haven't released any cards for it. They haven't taken any cards out of it. It's still one of the best lists in the game. We are perfect on 11 cards in this list. Moon Knight is sometimes Gambit, is sometimes Grandmaster. I'm partial to Moon Knight because I like an extra way to discard Swarm. That's it. Pick your poison. All right. This deck was created by the great Alexander Kochia, my teacher compadre, so please go check out Alexander Kochia on YouTube or Twitch at exactly that name. This deck needs MODOK, Bullseye, Dakin, and Frigga. Those 4 are non-negotiable, but remember you should have gotten Dakin free for buying Iron Patriot Season Pass. Scorn can be very simply Grandmaster or Gambit, the other replacements. You know who else can be Grandmaster or Gambit? Moon Knight. I don't think this is overrated. I think this has gone all the way to being underrated now. I think this deck is incredible. It doesn't really matter an awful lot that Bullseye isn't hitting things because of Luke. There's just not a ton of Mobius, which means that Swarm is incredible again. You want to discard Swarm. Basically, the second you discard Swarm and have a couple Scalers or Discarders, you are good to go. Your general goal is to get Swarm down to 0, then be able to play Bullseye and MODOK. If you can play Bullseye and MODOK with Swarm at 0, then Meek, Collector, or Morbius, or Dakin are all lane winners, and then you win the game. All right, catch my breath. Blade if Swarm, Meek. Turn 2, Morb if Frigga over Collector. Morb otherwise is just fine. You can play Colleen or Blade just fine if you're hitting Swarm. Turn 3, Dakin is better than Bullseye. Be careful, Bullseye. Make sure you try and play it on something that will protect it. Bullseye is very important here. Dakin or Bullseye is better than Frigga if Morb Collector. You can also play Dakin and then Frigga it, or Bullseye and then Frigga it if you know your opponent's not running Luke. 4 is the same as 3. This is your last real Frigga chance. You can also play a 2/2, especially if you now have Morbius or can now target your Swarm. Turn 5 is a 3 plus a 2. For the love of God, get out Bullseye. And then turn 6 is MODOK and trigger Bullseye. MODOK is a snap condition. That's what the white means if you didn't pick that up somehow at this point in the video. MODOK and trigger Bullseye, or the second Dakin and trigger Bullseye. This list is great, and people stop playing it, and I do not understand why. Play it more. Next up, we have Sorcerer's Apprentice. This is the new Doctor Strange, and this Doctor Strange is gorgeous. It's also 3,000 gold. It's also great value. 4,500 credits for 3,000 gold is about as good as you get in terms of gold value. However, the huge caveat is for almost anyone who would consider buying this, it is significantly better to use your gold on Sanctum refreshes if you're willing to grind that mode. Sanctum has better rewards than this bundle. It has better rewards than almost anything, and you can get Unknown Series 4 and 5 cards from it, in addition to like a bunch of credits and stuff. So you should probably use your gold for that. However, if you've got an abundance or you don't care about Sanctum, you just refuse to play it, this is a very, very good use of your gold. That was all our decks. That was 11 decks. Y'all ready for question of the day? Question of the day is just our honorable mention. Where's X deck? So Mill. I've found that Mill is not as good. I can easily see Mill having a comeback, but when I recently played Mill, I was really struggling. I felt like Gladiator was missing a lot more than it often was, and people were scaling up at different points to make Shang significantly worse, and I was not enjoying Mill as much. I know that one of the top players, Jocko, is playing Mill, and I could easily be wrong, and the meta can take a turn, and Mill could end up back on top, but I have Mill right at the top of the next list. I think Arisham is a bit below. People are not only experimenting with Darkhawk now, but Cassandra Nova is just casually in an awful lot of decks. You should have seen several Cassandra Novas today. Decks that can run Cassandra Nova and do might or might not. That makes it really hard to stay as Arisham. If you see a deck and you're not sure if it has Cassandra, you have a hard time deciding what decision to make for that. Bounce Move still has one of the best win rates in the game, at least in Sizer's hand. Sizer is still number one with Bounce Move. I would assume if you go on his stream as you watch this video, or a few hours after you watch this video, if you watch it too early, Sizer will be playing Bounce Move and he will be winning a ton. The issue is Bounce Move is very hard to play into Scream, and I think Scream is the best deck. And once people are done experimenting with this OTA, I think Scream will also be one of the most popular decks. Sizer beats Scream with Bounce Move. I don't think most people do. I don't think unless you are ridiculously practiced and ridiculously good with Bounce Move, that you beat Scream. If you don't beat Scream, then I don't think you can play this deck at the highest levels. That's why it's slightly off the list just for now. Surfer is another one that's really, really close to this list. I think Surfer is absolutely excellent right now. Excuse me, catching my breath. I think Surfer is absolutely excellent right now. If this was a top 15 list, Surfer would have made it. Surfer and Mill, I think, are the lists I'm closest to just thinking should be here. Ooh, there's one more. Sorry. Negative is excellent right now. Negative is very good, but Negative relies a lot on magic, and I spend just a little bit too much time getting my magic turned off. There's also just enough enchanters, just enough moves. There's just enough little extra answers to make this a little bit frustrating. Negative remains a really, really huge Cube Thief deck that doesn't get as many wins as you would be happy with for most people. If you're judging purely by stats, Zoo belongs on the list. Zoo is having a bit of a renaissance and it's insanely strong. My only caveat to Zoo is the same thing as my caveat to the next card. Both Zoo and Small Good cards are definitely two of the 10 best decks, but both Zoo and Small Good cards can really, really struggle into Man-Thing. And for this week, maybe next week they'll be on the list, but for this week with Man-Thing everywhere, they have to go off. And then Sauron got a little bit of a buff. Sauron has been very good, at least as of 2 or 3 weeks ago. It got two buffs. One, that Surtur deck that it can really struggle with is gone for the time being. And two, it got that buff to Lizard. I think Sauron's going to be very good, but I don't think people are really going to bother with it until the new card for it, Starbrand, comes out. I think it will be on the list when Starbrand comes out, but until then, I feel like people are just going to sort of wait for it, and thus it's not on the list. Certain tiers of support on Patreon come with on-air thanks. Thank you so much for watching this whole long video. I'm going to say thank you to a bunch of people, and then we'll head out. First, our patron of the month, Ocularis. Thank you to the OG Abigail Giesland, our friend Manager Burnout, It Regardless, Always Kind, LAB, Inc., The Graphite Fan, I Am Frostman, Sure Is, Hota Navarrete, Thinking Poker of the Thinking Poker podcast, check it out. Primed Ryan of the Prime Mind app, check it out. Ryan Burke of Burke Ave. It's not of Burke Ave, just leave it. Ryan Wood, Woody, go check him out, Ryan Wood YT. Caretix Lee, the King of Questions, Koire coming all the way from Japan, and watching me live record this, I believe. We've got Kazushi, hey Kazushi, Archangel 3K, that is R4K, Black Dahlia, what's up Black Dahlia, Pyrofros, The Goat Seeker, what's up Goatsy, Hallowed, who I had a nice conversation with earlier, Nightmare, Only Fox, Synth, who I think went to sleep and is no longer watching me do this live, Front Nerk, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, what's up Kerfuff, Cables, no idea where he is. Ginger Prime, hey Ginge, haven't heard from you in a while. Ginger, if you see this, shoot me a message, please. Philip Rakovich, Rapco, hopefully you're doing well. Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, The Bizza, Black Jeebus 23, Express G, and Skippy G. Enjoy London, Skippy. England, I don't know where you are in England. Jessica Gamble, Jess, thanks for reaching out. Mr. Slush Death, hopefully you're doing well. The King of Bros, Bro, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, who might or might not be watching. Hey, Werewolf. Lunar Chris, Kev C. Hoda, Clam, Colonel Forbin, who also, I believe, went to bed. Rob Silverman, M. Holland, David G. Wingfield, Stephen, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B. Mr. Craig Sterry, Matt V. Ren Wrench, Corbin, Junk U, and Jim McHugh. It's Q-Town. Yistout, Ace Sage, One Big Man, Milkman for Reals, Cactus Jack, what's up, McFoley, BG, Quid Pro Joe, Snap Decisions Joe, check out the Snap Decisions podcast, Models the Mod Supreme, who did a wonderful job as a first time Snap Decisions guest. You'll hear it tomorrow. My favorite Osborne Green Goblin, Unibot, sup Uni, Flan56, who was here earlier, but I believe also went to bed. The Fuzzy Lump, Spectrum X, Hoot, MBTB Shannon. Oh, no, this is the old version. No. Sorry, Shannon. Absolute Shannon. Matt H. What's up, Matt? DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Nick the Greek Geek, also on the podcast. Zodrex, check him out on Twitch. King of Canada, Twitch and YouTube. Denman Falcon, YouTube and the BX. Fa Thorn Newman, who had a deck in this video and will probably be smiling about it, hopefully, on YouTube and Twitch. Jonesy, check out the Triple Threat on YouTube. Two Ties, who does in fact wear two ties. The Great Leonard Evs of Snap on this podcast. The Parry King Tucker of Everywhere. And of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for 10, 11, whatever. Don't forget to check out our many more videos. And we'll see you tomorrow for some more Snap Take. Peace.